Alright, today we're going to mess around with a foam fly. It's not going to be a top water foam fly. It's actually going to be a suspending foam fly. But it's going to be a neat little subsurface darter. It's going to have a jerking side-to-side action because of the rounded epoxy head in combination with the buoyancy of the foam. We're going to have lots of movement from a zonker strip and a cross-cut rabbit body. Certainly the color variations are unlimited. I love this little chartreuse one, the barred one with the white belly. This one looks really good, but you know, foam can be used in a multitude of areas, and not only for top water. It can provide some suspension qualities for subsurface. It can push water because of the defined shape. So let's go ahead and put our Gamakatsu B10 stinger hook. It's a 1/0, very thin wire, a very large gap with a little longer shank for longer body flies, and certainly for the use of a very, very sharp hook that's thin and wire shaped. This one is one of my favorites. So I'm going to go ahead and attach my thread and attach my barred zonker strip. The one I'm using is a olive and chartreuse dyed barred zonker. I'll go ahead and take just a little bit of Flashabou. You don't need a lot. And go ahead and tie that in. I like to make sure it extends down the length of the tail, and that looks pretty good. If it was really long, I might trim it, but that one looks good. So we got our tail in, little Flashabou on this zonker strip. The next thing I'm going to do is put a mono anti-fouling loop in. So you want to go ahead and make your loop on top of the fly. I've tried to reiterate certain things in videos, and the correct way to tie a fouling, anti-fouling loop is to tie it on top of the fly and then pull your materials up through the loop, because it actually catches on the side of the material and provides the most effective anti-fouling protection. To just tie a loop underneath really isn't going to accomplish the same thing. Next, we're going to go ahead and tie in a piece of cross-cut zonker, which is going to be our body material for the belly. I'm going to be using white just to give it that natural white appearance. And the next thing I'm going to do is, I had this foam I bought from Michael's Craft Store. It's a glitter foam. It's really nice. It's a pearlescent glitter. It has a sticky back, which ironically works well for this fly. So I'm going to cut a little strip of this glitter foam, and I'm going to cut a small little V in the back for where I'm going to attach it in the back, and I'm going to pull off the sticky part of the back of this. So I didn't really like the sticky concept at first, but it seems to work well, and most of the flies that I tie, it just has some natural adhesive in it. Not natural, but it has adhesive in it already. So I'm going to tie in my little V that I cut out. I'm going to move my thread up to the eye of the hook, just covering the hook shank just a little bit to provide a base of thread. And now underneath of this, I'm going to palmer my cross-cut rabbit, just building up a nice thick body. Come up here, and since my thread is already at the eye of the hook, I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. Just pull everything kind of out of the way, push it back a little bit. Now, to get the maximum effect from this hair, I'm going to pull all of it kind of down and out of the way from the foam. I'm going to lay the foam down the fly body. I'm going to see where it kind of comes out, where my eye is going to come. I'm going to go back and just trim a little slot, and that's where that foam is going to pop out. So once I know that, I'm going to come back and put another little V cut in here for the underside of the fly, so that I'm not tying in these big chunks of flat foam. I really just need to catch the foam, so I'm going to try and catch these little points both in the back and in the front. So once I've got the eye coming through a little bit, that adhesive works real good now, because now it's catching the material. And I'm just going to basically tie off the head Put a whip finish or two in there. It's not necessary to be too meticulous because I'm going to put epoxy on this. Now you can see the eye's kind of closed up. It's going to happen, so I just got to come back with my scissors and trim a little slot. It's kind of a archaic way of doing it, but the benefits of the adhesive work in certain ways and they hinder you in other ways, and the hindrance is it's wanting to stick into that eye. So basically I'm just cutting out the foam here, push it back. Got me a paper clip, so I'll kind of poke it through. And just take my scissors and kind of, I wouldn't recommend this certainly, but sometimes you do what you got to do. And I'm just pushing all that foam now out of the eye of the hook. I don't want to crowd it with that foam. And there's other ways you could have done this to make it a lot more user friendly, but for all intent and purposes I've got the foam out of the eye now. If you look, it's kind of a weird shape on the sides, so what I'm going to do is trim them flat. And now I've got this nice profile down the side. Still a little bit of the sticky foam on the front, but whatever, it's not going to make any difference really. And now I've got my basic body and tail, underbelly done. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and put these adhesive eyes, these 3D epoxy eyes on the side. This is going to give it a very cool, I love putting eyes on flies. So we're going to put two really neat eyes on the side of the fly. Come back up here and secure our thread. A little straggling piece of foam there. And we're going to put a little weed guard on here, same thing, a double mono weed guard. I'm going to take that, just like always, make a couple of loose wraps just to catch it, pull it tight, and then finish it off. Some whip finishes and we are done. Cut the weed guard to length. Now I'm going to wet my cross cut just a little bit before I epoxy so it doesn't get caught. I use these little index cards just to put a little bit of epoxy on there. You don't need a lot. I mean, if you're going to do a bunch of flies at one time, you can mix up a little bit of a larger batch. But all I'm doing is just mixing my epoxy with a paper clip. I just use a paper clip and index card because I'm going to end up throwing the stuff away every time I get done. Now get a nice batch mixed up. Get the hairs out of the way that are going to want to get caught. Pull my weed guard out and just put a big glob right on the bottom here. Come over here on the side, put a blob. Get a blob on the other side. Go over the threads that are in that gap that we created from tying off the fly. Go over the top. And now basically I'm just filling in the gaps, just trying to create a nice, smooth, even finish. Got them inside between the eyes. For all intent and purposes, we are done. So now what I would do is take this fly, put it in my little wheel. And I'll show you right quick. I think that'll show it to you. I got a little turning device that dry that epoxy and it just spins. It'll make it even and smooth. But for all intent and purposes, that's the fly. And what we've done is, just like in a cooking show, we pull the finished product out of the oven and there they are. I mean, they're beautiful little submersion flies that have a little darting type action to them. The epoxy adds a little bit of durability to the foam. We have a little pearlescent quality in the foam itself, which is nice, a little adhesive back on it to work with. And they make a very neat subsurface fly that has a darting action. Thank you very much.